Okay, winners and losers of the draft. We are going with losers here, and I want to really clarify losers because this draft, like every draft, has every team making some picks that I liked. So when I put you on the losers list, it does not necessarily mean that I think that they did not get value or get better. It really means that I feel like they could have done a better job at maximizing their value. Some of these teams on this list absolutely are better today than they were yesterday. In fact, they all are because you added talent, right? But these are teams I think maybe did the worst job at it. And again, there's some of these that I don't even really hate. Some of them I kind of understand the logic behind what they did. But ultimately, I have to pick 7, so these are my 7 losers of the 2025 NFL Draft. Number 7, I'm going with Atlanta here, who might be on some people's winners list, so let me just explain exactly why I have them here. For one thing, only 5 picks. You always like to have more picks, and it's worth mentioning, they traded away a future first to get the 5 selections that they ended up with, so I think it's a bit of a risk. Now, I do really like James Pierce Jr. as a player. I think for me, I'm much lower on Jalen Walker than other people were. I would have rather them maybe even trade back towards the end of the first round, still get James Pierce and get another pick, and just not have Jalen Walker and have your first round pick next year. They are in a risky scenario where if things don't go as well as they hope they do this next year, they could be kind of screwed, right? I will say I did really like their selection of Xavier Watts with pick 96. So, like I said, there are some picks I really liked. I think Pierce and Watts will be really good players. Walker could turn into a really good player at some point, but I was lower on him personally. So, again, part of it is just how we evaluate these players, and we'll see who's right or wrong. But I could see a world where this ends up being a franchise-altering draft in a good way. To me, it's just too big of a risk for what they ended up doing. At 6, I did go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who got my favorite player in the draft, Travis Hunter. So, right off the bat, they have that good thing, and they also had a lot of picks in the draft, which is always good. Quite frankly, I think, I kind of debated back and forth. I think I am against the idea of trading from 5 to 2, because you're giving up, everyone kind of says, well, Travis Hunter could be 2 players. Well, you traded you traded multiple players to get him, right? And many snaps is Hunter going to get? Don't get me wrong, I think Hunter's going to be awesome. He could be the next Shohei Ohtani of this time of football. Like, there is potential there, and if that happens, well, that's a massively valuable piece. So I get it, and that's why, again, you have to put 7 teams on the list. I don't really hate the move. I just I think that the Browns kind of came out ahead there personally. Also, why I put the Jaguars on the list is there was just some kind of questionable picks, which, hey, the consensus big board is not the end-all be-all, but there was a lot of, Caleb Ransaw was projected to go 150th. He went 88th. Jack Kaiser projected to go 159th. He goes at 107. Jalen McLeod was ranked 310th. He goes at 194. Jonah Monahim, who was selected 221, but he was the 500th ranked prospect. So, Raekwon Lane, projected to go 270th. He goes at 200. A lot of those picks as well, which you never love to be on that side of. So, ultimately, it's not a draft I hated. I think they got some good players, including, again, my favorite player of this draft, but I had to pick 7, so they're one of the 7. Number 5, I decided to go with the Miami Dolphins here, who, again, a draft I totally understood why they did what they did. I get division. I just wonder if they could have maximized value. Again, I brought it up with Atlanta. A trade back would have been ideal, but as I should have mentioned with Atlanta, so I'll mention it both here, is that you can't guarantee a trade back, right? You have to find a partner and all that stuff. Teams didn't want to trade back or trade up in this draft class, was the report. But Kenneth Grant projected to go 24th. They get him at 13. Jonah, I still haven't figured out how to say his name, but Jonah S. Projected to go 55th, goes at 37. Those are 2 players they really needed, so I get the logic, but usually it's not ideal to draft for need. I feel like they could have maximized value a little bit better. So in a draft where there weren't really too many, I think in most drafts this doesn't make the list, but I think that most teams are pretty smart this year, so that's why they ultimately make the list. At 4, the Lions make the list. Again, kind of similar I just felt like there were a couple of picks that I just felt like were a bit reachy. The Tyreek Williams pick, I think he's going to be a good contributor to the Lions. I think it will help as a first-round pick, but it was a bit early. It was just a bit early for me for that kind of player. Should be a good run-stuffing interior guy, but I feel like they could have maybe gotten a player who had added a little more value at pick 28. The Tate Ratledge pick is, around when he was projected. I'm not a huge fan of his game, but he should be a fine player for them. The Isaac Tisala pick, again, all these names are hard, right? But, he was projected to go 168th. They get him at 70. It's a bit of a jump there. Doing my research on him, not really sure I fully see the vision. So a couple picks where I feel like they could have maximized value a little bit more. That being said, the Lions have ended up on a loser's list before on a draft that ended up being a great draft, which was when they had the Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell draft. So, we'll see if they make me look stupid again, but I still have to give my opinion, so that is my opinion. Number 3, I'm going with the New England Patriots here, who, again, I think made some really smart picks along the way, including Kyle Williams, who's a player that I really like. Trayvon Henderson should help out them a lot as a running back in the second round. But ultimately, there's kind of two main critiques I have of this. For one, it's not even really a critique, but they would have loved a better player to fall to them at 4, right? Part of why they're losers is just simply due to the fact that the top 3 teams drafted the top 3 players. There was some thought of maybe Shedeur Sanders is going to go top 3, which was way off, but there was some thought that might happen. Ultimately, Will Campbell is not a prospect that I'm in love with. I do think that he's a good player and should help out, but it feels like they could have, in theory, and again, what else are they supposed to do, right? I think they could have, there are players I had higher on my board still available, but you want to help out Drake May, and the first 3 picks did do that. So, again, third biggest loser, but that's only because I think this was the mostly smart draft by teams. The Braden Swinston selection was one I really liked, but then towards the end of the draft, they really got special teams heavy. They drafted both a kicker and a long snapper. The long snapper was one of the last picks of the draft. Kobe Minor is also a special teams guy. So got a little special teams happy for my taste towards the end. A kicker still in the 100s, 182. Never loved drafting kickers, so, ultimately, again, not a horrible draft. Some picks I like, but I do feel like maybe you were hoping for a bit more if you were a Patriots fan entering the draft. Number 2, I am going to Washington Commanders here. So first they go with Josh Connerly Jr., who is a player that, again, I think is a fine player. I think drafting him late first round is totally a fine decision. I just do wonder, is it worth it when they already kind of have depth at the tackle position? He's not going to be a starter. Are you maximizing your next 3 years where you have Jaden Daniels? I just don't know. I did love the Trey Amos pick. That one I think is great. But then their other 3 picks, they only had 5 picks, and their other 3, you kind of look at all of them as, I feel like a big part of those picks are special teams. I think they hope Jalen Lane can also be a contributor offensively, but as of right now, I just don't know if they maximized these picks. They got 5 picks, and I could see other than special teams, which, hey, special teams matters, but other than special teams, they might only end up with 1 player who's going to contribute on offense or defense out of this draft, although Trey Amos should be a really good player. So, again, not every pick I hate, but not my favorite draft. And finally, number 1, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who, listen, I think Demetrius Knight, getting him as a starting linebacker, again, was a reach on the consensus big board, was projected to go 34 spots later, but he at least should be a decent player for them. They did, quote-unquote, reach, according to the consensus big board, on every pick, except for when they selected Jalen Rivers, who was supposed to go at 146 at pick 153. But ultimately, I'm just not a Shamar Stewart fan who they selected at pick 17. He's a player who, again, has great physical traits, should at the very least be a great run stopper, but he's currently an edge rusher who his body type is not that of an edge rusher. I don't know exactly what you do with him. I think he's a developmental guy, which, hey, there's value in a developmental guy. I'm not saying he's a valueless prospect. I think he could totally work out in a couple of years for Cincinnati, but if you're Cincinnati, is that the route you should be going here when you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins trying to develop an edge rusher who might not be good right away, when in my opinion, there were still some really good defensive players on the board to help out Burrow. So to help out the Bengals in general because their defense needs to get better. So ultimately, they are, in my opinion, the biggest loser of this draft, but we'll see. Again, what do I know? Maybe Jalen Rivers will turn into an elite guard, and then Barrett Carter will turn into an elite off-ball linebacker, and now it looks stupid. You can never say. Or maybe Shamar Stewart will become an elite player. That's possible, right? So who knows? But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.